welcome to today's ChemCareers webinar on careers in the surface coatings sector. We're lucky to have many members of the FRSC surface coatings interest group with us today who are going to talk about their role and answer some of your questions as well. So a big thank you to them for being part of today. So I'm just going to quickly introduce our panel. They are Tom Botell, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the British Coatings Federation, Dr. Joe Douglas Harris, who is the Inks Product and Applications Manager at Venator, Dr. Jon-Paul Griffiths, who is the Managing Director and Senior Technology Officer at Oxford Advanced Surfaces Limited, Dr. John Rose, who's the Technical Manager at Sherwin-Williams, and Laura Merritt, who is the Director of Merritt Recruitment. We're going to hear from the panel now. So if I could ask them quickly to briefly introduce themselves and their role within the coating sector. If I can come to you first, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, my name's Tom Bowtell. I'm the Chief Exec at the British Coatings Federation. So we're the trade body that looks after the paints, coatings, printing inks and wall coverings manufacturers. I'm also the current chair of the special interest group. I had a long and successful career working in the coatings industry before moving to the Federation. So joined a multinational as a graduate trainee and worked my way up through different divisions and worked in many parts of the world. So I had a great career and thoroughly enjoying representing the industry in the role I've got now. So that's me.
Thanks, Tom. Joe, if we come to you next.
Thanks, Sarah. So, well, I started out with a degree in chemistry and then a PhD in chemical engineering, looking at laundry detergents. Briefly went into a process science role at British Sugar before moving into a product development scientist role at Venator. So Venator produce pigments and performance additives and have production facilities all over the world, with our headquarters based in Teesside. In terms of size, I think we employ about 3,700 associates and sell our products in more than 120 countries. And I now work, as you said, as the Inks Product and Applications Manager.
Perfect. Jon-Paul, if we come to you next.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, I'm Jon-Paul Griffiths. I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of Oxford Advanced Surfaces. So Oxford Advanced Surfaces is a spin-out company from Oxford University. I founded the company in 2006 from work from my postdoc there. And we really deal with surface treatment and coatings for advanced materials. Unlike Joe, we're a bit smaller. There's only 10 of us here at OAS. So I'll be answering questions on what it's like to work on a small company side in the coatings industry.
Excellent. John Rose.
Yep, hi, I'm John Rose, and I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum from Jon-Paul. I work for the biggest paint company in the world. I've also worked for the biggest ink company in the world and the biggest oil and gas coatings company in the world. So I've worked for big multinationals and had lots of fun things and really enjoyed my time in the coatings industry.
Perfect, that sounds great. And then finally, Laura.
Hello, I'm Laura Merritt. I have a degree in chemistry and I was lucky enough to have a PhD that was in the coatings industry. I spent some time in the paint industry before moving to recruitment. I recruit for the chemical industry, and one of those major markets that I work in is paints, coatings and inks. I'm lucky in that I recruit for technical, commercial and operations and regulatory roles, and my client base includes big multinationals all the way down to small SMEs.
Perfect. Right, so now I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's going to give us an overview of the surface coating sector, and that includes a short video that will hopefully work okay. So over to you, Tom.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. So if you just move on to the next slide. So yeah, coatings are really critical to UK manufacturing, to UK industry, but most people just take it for granted that many of the products we come into contact with it every day actually have a coating on them, whether it's a table or car or a computer, or just the room, the office you're sitting in now, or the home you're sitting in now. And we've got some quite strong credentials, 300,000 people working in the sector, being a net exporter of coatings and inks, which is great. So yeah, we think coatings have a huge contribution to the UK economy, and overall sales of the industries are about 4 billion, and indirectly we impact quite a much wider part of the economy, which I think might be my next slide. Oh no, this is about our members. So yeah, when we talk about a career in coatings, there's a wide variety of companies out there operating in the UK. So we've got 150 manufacturer members within the coatings industry. These are the paints and coatings companies. There are some multinationals here like Akzo Nobel, PPG, Sherwin-Williams, where John works, BASF, Axalta, but also many smaller companies who you won't have heard of, but have some very exciting products and career opportunities as well. So I think we've got a really nice mix of sort of large and small employers in the sector. Next slide, please. So we also talked about printing ink companies. There's about 30 companies that manufacture printing inks in the UK, and you can see their logos here. So Sun Chemical is the world's biggest printing ink manufacturer. Also big global players are companies like Flint and Huber, etc., and Siegwerk. And you've also got digital ink companies such as Hewlett Packard, Ricoh, etc. as well. So yes, so the inks is also an interesting sector with lots of interesting new technology. Next slide, please. So I mentioned about the segments of the economy where you'll find coatings, and if you look at this slide, huge parts of UK manufacturing, as I'd said. The printing industry, obviously, but also food packaging. Everything you've got in your home, particularly in your kitchen, has got a coating or an ink on the packaging, and obviously the whole construction sector as well, and even things like your refrigerator. That's a coil-coated bit of steel that's on your fridge. So they're everywhere. Coatings are everywhere, all around us. So I think the next thing that we're going to do is show a short video that sort of tells you this slightly more articulately than me. So I'm going to let Sarah run the video before we move into our discussions.
So hopefully you can see that.
Have you considered a career in the paint and printing ink industry? It's the world's most looked at industry, but not one you hear much about on the news despite being all around us. Luckily for you, there is a shortage of skilled paint and ink chemists in Europe, which means there are real job opportunities out there for students like you who are looking for a challenging career. The colour of coatings is the colour of money, if you can match up. Coatings are all around us, on the cars we drive, in the buildings we work and learn in, on the cases of our laptops, on credit cards, phones and tablets. Coatings colour our world, but they also protect valuable natural resources by increasing the lifespan of wood, metal and concrete in buildings and bridges, making coatings a sustainable career choice. Modern coatings utilise the latest advances in technology, helping to create special effects. Nanotechnology, for example, allows for the creation of self-cleaning coatings for wind turbines, antimicrobial coatings for hospitals, heat-reflecting coatings for buildings in hot climates, and light-reflective coatings to reduce our need for energy inside buildings. Lighter weight coatings help improve the fuel efficiency and speed of cars. Could you be the next paint chemist to help make Formula 1 cars go faster? The coatings industry is constantly developing. Today's catalogues and posters, for example, come to life thanks to augmented reality in printing inks, using digital and printed technology together. And the latest ink technology brings new sensations to readers, with new experiences created for both touch and smell. The coatings industry has been around since the earliest cave paintings many thousands of years ago, and we will be here long into the future. But to make the next creative breakthroughs, the industry needs the next generation of talent, and that could be you. Every pot of paint or ink means a can full of chemistry. It is the chemist who determines which surfaces a coating will stick to, how long it will last, and how it will withstand sometimes punishing weather conditions. Coatings are becoming smarter every year, and the next generation of paints and inks requires the brains of the next generation of chemists. The colour of coatings are all around us, and the colour of coatings is the colour of money for the candidates who match up. The coatings industry is waiting for you, so get in touch.
Perfect. I hope everyone could see that okay. Right, so now we're going to have some questions, but a reminder, if you have any questions for the panel, then to include them in the questions box, and we'll come to them at the end, and you can ask your questions to the panelists. So I'm going to come now to Jon-Paul and John Rose to talk a little bit about what they do. So I'm sure there's lots of misleading preconceptions about what it's like to work in the coatings industry, as there are with all science careers, and it may differ between a large employer like Sherwin-Williams and a smaller employer like Oxford Advanced Surfaces. So Jon-Paul and John Rose, what might a career in the coatings industry look like? Could you describe a little bit about your typical day?
Yeah, I can start off. A typical day is quite difficult because one thing about the coatings industry is it's incredibly varied. And I think the thing I love the most is that you get to see the whole life cycle of a product. When I started out doing my PhD, I was working on luminescent materials for a heads-up display. So I spent loads of time playing with powders, and it seems fantastic, but I never got anywhere near a heads-up display. And then as a young chemist, I started working at Sun Chemical developing news inks. And you not only sit in the lab working on the news ink, within sort of like a few months, you're at a press house, seeing your ink getting poured into the duct and the paper coming out the other end. And it's very much the same now. We're developing paints, timber care products, and you physically get to touch the product and see it coming off the production line and seeing the finished product. So you really get to touch the whole product life cycle, and you get experience in other things. Lots of my team members, they go on to be technical sales people, they move into marketing, they move into regulatory, because you touch all these other areas of a big corporation. And because R&D is always seen as a wealth of talent, that these people are identified early on in their careers and encouraged to go to other areas of the business. So I just think, in one word, in the coatings industry and working for a big company, it's all about opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree with that, John. Actually, I think there's a lot of crossover between your large company experience and what it's like here working for a smaller company. Absolutely, there is no typical day for us. Everything is varied. For OES, we do everything from coating and new application development in sort of R&D, all the way through to formulation and production, and also we're vertically integrated, so we actually synthesize some of our key raw materials ourselves. So we are fairly broad across that chemistry and scientific disciplines within the company. And that means one day you can be in the lab and the next day, my team can be out with a Formula One team or working on a 70-metre long wind turbine, trying to solve the problems that our customers are seeing and trying to work out how our coatings can solve them. So it really is quite a varied industry to be in. And I think one of the things that excites me and has kept me going over these last 15 years is the fact that, you know, one week to the next week are totally different, and there's always new products, new projects coming up and exciting new technologies that just keeps it always fresh and exciting to work in.
That sounds great. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different variety. You're always working on solving new problems, and there's lots of opportunities to develop and expand your career in the sector. So that's great. We're going to come to Joe now, who's going to talk to us a little bit about what does the industry offer graduates, but also experienced chemistry using professionals as well.
To be honest, I think a lot of the things that it offers graduates are relevant to more experienced chemists as well. But I guess it's the opportunity to work on something that, like Tom was saying, is everywhere, but that you know, most people don't think about the sort of science behind it all. But it's something that has a huge impact on, you know, everybody's day-to-day life, and it's a complex area where there's still lots to learn and lots of things that we don't fully understand. So I think having that as a challenge is one thing that is a really great offering in this area. And again, the sort of broad range of sectors and lots of variety. So I specifically work on inks, but even within inks that go into different applications are all completely different. So yeah, huge opportunities to learn. Separate from that, I think the importance of the interactions between the sort of R&D lab scale things that we do and scaling that up to manufacturing and how it's going to perform in applications and how that fits with the commercial piece is something that's really important in the industry. And also the fact that we've got companies all over the world and you know, with manufacturing plants in lots of different countries, so opportunities to potentially live abroad or travel abroad while you're working on things. So yeah, I think the industry really does have a lot to offer.
Yeah, that I agree with Joe. It sounds like, yeah, you get that global and international experience as well, working with colleagues around the world then on lots of different problems and working out solutions to them as well. It sounds really exciting. So next, we talk a little bit about some of the training as well, and you can see through the this is the pay and award survey, the coatings, paints and ink sector saw one of the highest median salary rises as well in 2019, so lots of good opportunities there. Next we're going to come to Laura and Tom to talk about what are the kind of key quality skills, experience, or specific technical training, because I'm aware there's lots of technical requirements that you need to work in the sector. And I believe there's a coatings training institute as well that you're going to briefly mention.
Yeah, maybe I'll just start there. So yeah, many chemists coming into the sector haven't got sort of basic coatings knowledge, because it's in many chemistry courses it simply isn't offered. So yeah, what the industry's done is it's developed its own suite of online learning that allows people to take sort of modular courses depending on their particular interest or where they're going to work or where they'd like to work, and can study from home to sort of get that coating specific knowledge either before they join or once they've joined a company. So it's called the Coatings Training Institute, and if you just Google Coatings Training Institute, you should find us. Yeah, so that's a useful resource for those who would like to upskill or reskill into our area. So Laura, do you want to pick up the?
Yeah. So if we're looking at graduates, Leeds University do a master's in colour chemistry, and there's I've had a look at that recently. There's a couple of units in there that are specific to the coatings industry, which is really useful. With employers, if you've got graduates who've got a good chemistry degree, the paints and coatings industry are well aware that you're unlikely to have much knowledge. So they do like that you've had some experience of working in an industrial lab, but you will find that one of the joys of paints and coatings are the people there will help you. It's a really generous group of people that are willing to sort of bring on and train people in-house. So they're quite happy if you're willing to learn, you know, they're quite happy to sort of take you by the hand. And I think you saw that there was a big increase in salaries. I'm very aware because I'm in recruitment. There is a real shortage of good quality people. And at the moment, we've seen that reflected in increase in salaries. We have quite an ageing workforce at the moment. So if you're looking to join in an industry where you want rapid progression, you've got great opportunities at the moment. You could be becoming a technical manager within a very, very short space of time. The kind of things that employers are looking at, I think Joe and Jon-Paul and John have already covered. You're looking at good communication skills. The R&D, if you're a paint chemist, you will be talking to people in production, quality control, you'll be talking to customers, you'll be talking to the sales and marketing team. So communication skills are absolutely top notch. Problem solving. The paint industry have lots of challenges, you know, whether it's dealing with changes in legislation or meeting new environmental requirements. So it's, you know, your ability to solve problems, and that's in the lab, going into production. Why is a paint failed? So again, it's, you know, problem solving is good. You need to be flexible. You need to be understanding that perhaps you, as an expert in paints, might be talking to someone who doesn't know particularly much about chemistry. The chemistry itself is really broad and varied. It's absolutely. I've had 20 odd years in the industry, and it still fascinates me on why coatings fail. And so it's, you know, everything is changing. There's all these new materials. You're seeing graphene being used widely within our industry. So all these new materials and advancements make it a really exciting place to be in. Key skills that employers are looking for, you've got to be able to formulate, colour matching. A lot of the coatings are used for aesthetics, so colour matching is good. Transfer of technology, taking that new paint you've developed from the laboratory, moving it into production, working with the production people to get things working smoothly. Being adaptable to changes in legislation, and you know, the job changes. And also, what's nice about the coatings industry is that you can move into production, you can move into a commercial role, you can move back into the lab. There is lots of flexibility where perhaps you don't necessarily see that in other industries. And you have this at the moment, great opportunities for career progression. Does that help you, Sarah?
Yes, yeah, that sounds like there's lots of opportunities there, and you've clearly outlined some skills, communication skills, problem solving, and although those technical skills as well, like formulation and color matching, and that opportunity to move between the lab and sales and other types of roles as well. It sounds like there's an area where you can really get stuck in and make a difference, and really go with what interests you as well, which is great. Thank you, Laura and Tom. So now we're coming to you again, Laura. So I know you've touched on it a little bit before, but if you were recruiting for a new member of your team, and I'm going to ask Jon-Paul and John Rose to come in as well from a smaller employer side and the larger employer side. But if you were recruiting for a new member of your team, what helps an application stand out to you? Is there a typical recruitment process? Is it similar to other industries? And are there any specific websites that members or individuals can use to find out about specific roles or learn more about careers in coatings? Laura, do you
Shall
want
I
to
start?
kick us off?
Yes,
Yes.
I will. So I don't think there is a typical process. The big corporates definitely are aligned with corporates across all the chemicals industry. So you would have a fairly standard HR technical interview, possibly maths and English group tests and things like that. With the SMEs, that's a little bit more informal, but there will be, with all these kind of interviews, they will delve into your ability to, your team working, your project management skills, but there will be a technical aspect. And I would advise everybody to, before they turn up at their interview, have a look at the chemistry that you're going to be asked about. Think about the formulations and aspects like that. But yeah, the interview processes can be very grueling to, good fun. But most of the clients that I work with are very supportive, understand if you've coming into the industry with no experience at all. They want to know about you and your ability to learn more than, what does a paint formulation contain?
Absolutely, and I'm guessing it's also just enthusiasm for the work and the sector as well, and that's often a big thing that we in the careers team talk about to individuals, is that enthusiasm and doing your research on the company as well can make such a big difference when you're going through the recruitment process, and know that it's a good fit for you as well as for the company. Jon-Paul, do you agree from the SME side of things? Is it very similar? Are there any kind of key skills that or requirements that make an application stand out to you when you're recruiting? Jon-Paul, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the comments that you and Laura made are definitely on the money for what we would be looking for. We wouldn't expect anyone to have any background in the type of coatings or the areas that we are involved in, because we're slightly specialised and niche, and we wouldn't really expect anyone to know about it. What we do expect, though, is people to have a look at our website and have a general feel about what we do as a company, and at least come armed with some thoughts about what we do and understand a bit about the areas that we're looking at. For me, particularly what we're looking for in CVs and applications that come through is evidence that the person or the applicant can work very well in a small team or work very well in a team. And I think that's one of the most crucial things for a small company, is that interpersonal skills. How well will they fit in with everyone else that's here? And that's, I think, possibly one of the differences with a larger organization, is that it's really important that you have a good team fit when you have if there's only 7 or 8 of you in one office and that is everyone, it's key that everyone works well together. A couple of other things is any evidence that you're willing to take responsibility for actions, that you're willing to learn new skills, and overall in general just good communication, especially of scientific information. So if you have done an undergraduate or a postgraduate project, if you can get across that in your application and I can understand it, then that's a really good indication to me that if we do employ you and we send you out to a customer, you'll be able to get across detailed chemical information to people that aren't experts in what you're trying to do. In terms of the interview process, as Laura suggested, we are slightly, I think we're slightly similar. So we do a sort of generic HR interview just to get to know you. We do also insist on sort of a presentation, which can be technical, it can be generic, it depends on the role we're after, but really in that it's about assessing what your communication skills are like, and then a very in-depth technical interview, and it really is about the technical side for us. And again, not so much about whether you know the specifics of what goes into a coating, but more about understanding what your thought process is and how you can deal with problem solving and deal with situations that might arise.
That's really useful, Jon-Paul. Agreed. And yeah, that communication coming across, not just fitting in with the team, but also dealing with different people with different scientific backgrounds.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I forgot to mention earlier is that all of our customers that we have are engineers. So we deal with the transportation, the automotive sector. So none of the customers that we have to sell products to actually understand anything about chemistry or formulation. So it's really important for us is that we have people that can communicate with other different scientists, engineers in a language that they understand, but also then be able to translate back what they're telling them into what that means for us in the chemistry environment.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a key skill that I know comes up in my conversations as well with members when we're talking about careers. John Rose, could we come to you and a little bit about the perspective from a larger company? So maybe when you're recruiting, what stands out to you as well, and what do you look for in terms of fit?
Yeah, I think I would echo Jon-Paul's there with communication. It's different with communication because you're communicating between groups, but you're communicating closely with production, sales, marketing. So it's being able to take those complex scientific issues and problems and make someone with a non-scientific background understand. Now, as you can imagine, with a huge company, the interview process is very structured. We have a whole department called talent acquisition that's constantly on the lookout for young talent. So what I would say to any people who are interested in joining a big corporation is get your CV out there, but don't just do it once, send it numerous times, because each time we could be looking for a specific role, or sometimes if we're looking for junior people, we're more looking about the attitude of the person and the flexibility and the communication skills of that person, because we have the facility to develop them. We have lots of in-house training that we provide. So really it's about making sure that that person fits in with our philosophy and our structure. So we will ask, say we have 10 people coming in for the interview, all 10 people will do exactly the same questions. They will be asked to deliver exactly the same presentation, and they will be given exactly the same task. One recent event when we were looking for a graduate chemist to join the lab, we did colour matching where we were asking people to take a fence product and colour match a Cadbury's purple. So we try to keep it interesting, but we're looking at how people interact between the group with the other interview panelists, but also sort of like how they take a problem and resolve it. So yes, communication and those soft people skills are what we're really looking at.
That's great. Thank you, John Rose. And just a reminder to listeners, if you have any questions for the panel, to pop them into the question box, and we'll be coming to them shortly. I see there's a few that's come in there already. So next I'm coming to Tom and Joe, but anyone else can jump in as well. What advice would you give to someone who's starting out on their career, and how can they progress? It sounds like there's lots of opportunities to progress quickly. So what can help with that as well? And what can help them get started and kind of hit the ground running?
I think in terms of, well, for starting and progressing is looking out for opportunities to sort of acquire and improve your knowledge in the area. So whether that's sort of signing up to e-newsletters or looking out for webinars that are going to be in the area that you're interested in getting into. Obviously the Surface Coatings Special Interest Group from the Royal Society of Chemistry have some, but there are obviously other organisations organising things in the area. So definitely look out for those. Things like keeping up with what the BCF are putting out on their social media and things like that, just so you're aware of the kind of trends in the industry and what is going on. In terms of once you're in a role looking for progression, I think looking for opportunities to learn outside of your sort of direct area. Laura's absolutely right that within the industry, people are really generous with their time and sharing their knowledge. So I would say just take on as much of that as you can. Anybody who's willing to give you the time to share their knowledge with you, take the opportunity, learn as much as you can. That's not necessarily your exact area of work, and just be proactive within your role, suggesting you know, improvements that you can see, or extra opportunities to pull in some new science that you've read about in a paper or heard about in a webinar. I think would be my sort of top tips for starting and progressing.
Great, thank you, Jo. Tom, would you agree, or do you have any other points to add about starting off and progressing your career in coatings?
I think once the key thing is to get in. Once you've got through the door, you know, you can then, through your proactivity and through what you deliver, you know, particularly in the bigger companies, you know, you have, you know, if I look at my own career, you know, I joined as a graduate and then moved through different job roles and ended up, you know, having the privilege to work abroad in the US and in Eastern Europe. And yeah, there's so many doors that open for you, and people just don't realise that the coatings industry is so diverse and has so many interesting career options. So I think, but yeah, I think all the things we've heard about, that sort of the proactivity, the you know, doing your homework, being persistent, you know, those are all things that will, you know, eventually, if you nag enough, someone might, you know, might send you an email back, or so just don't give up. And I think I guess the other thing is, I think because one of the benefits people have, because coatings and printing inks perhaps isn't such a well-known sector, actually you might find there's possibly less competition than you might find in the pharma sector, for example. So, you know, I think so that's I think that's another good reason to look at our sector, is that yeah, I think we're the sort of hidden gem, if you like, of the chemistry industry, and so yeah, not many people find us. So so there's great opportunities there, I think.
Can I interrupt? So because I recruit across a diverse range of industries, if you look at the pharmaceutical industry, there will not be any technical directors who don't have a PhD, but within the paints and coatings industry, you're not going to need a PhD to become technical director, and you can be running huge divisions with lots of people reporting to you without you know, that extra 3 or 4 years at university in research. It does help. There are very few PhDs in the paints and coatings industry. It's a pleasure to be amongst the panel with everybody with the qualifications, but it's still quite a rarity. So if you've got a degree in chemistry, you know, you can progress an awful long way and have a very, very senior position, and there won't be any blockers.
That's great.
I just echo what Laura said. When I started at Sun Chemical, I was the only person in News Inks R&D with a PhD, and that was including all the technical directors and technical managers.
And I think Jon-Paul's a great example of the transferable skills. The paints, coatings and inks industry you don't have to have worked on solvent-based coatings. You don't just have to have worked on inks. All the experience you get in formulation, project management, long and short-term project, all of those are relevant. Your experience in sort of, you know, transfer into production. So it allows you great scope, and there's a lot of security in the paints and coatings industry. You know, with pharmaceutical, I've seen site after site shut, but with the paint industry, most of the sites are still going 20, 30, 40 years on. So there's good job security as well as excellent career prospects.
Yeah, I would echo that, Laura, as well. I think it is just about taking whatever skills you've got and just trying to make them work, really. For us, it's all about just anyone that's enthusiastic and willing to learn, will happily train them up. We totally accept the fact that there isn't a lot of coatings and formulation that goes into degree studies anymore. So we accept the fact that, you know, we might be taking graduates on that haven't really done anything. It's all about the attitude and the willing to learn. That's what we're really after.
Great, thank you everybody. That's really, really useful. It just sounds like there's so much to offer within this sector. We've got a number of questions, so we'll move now on to the questions bit, but I'll leave these links up as that's the kind of some of the places that you can go to find out more about coatings. And obviously you can also, if you're an RSC member, join the Surface Coatings interest group as well and get involved in what they offer. Right, we'll come on to the questions. So I think this one is for you, Laura, about speculative applications. So for big and small companies, is that something that is a successful route of getting in as well, in your experience?
I think it would be speculative applications are worthwhile for the larger organisations that will have lots of requirements for chemists and so forth. But for some of the smaller chemists, people are quite loyal in the paint industry. They tend to stay with a company for a good many years. There's not much chopping and changing. So some of the smaller companies are less liable to have opportunities for you. So I would probably target the sort of top 5, big paint and inks companies. And I think John Rose was saying, do reapply. Lots of the larger companies won't retain CVs longer than a year. A year tends to be the time when they sort of will delete you. So, but the smaller companies, they don't tend to have high staff turnovers. So if I was placing my bets, I would aim for the larger organisations, and they've usually got very helpful HR departments. If you're able to speak to them, they will give you advice as to whether there's going to be future vacancies. Some organisations will do sort of big recruitments annually, take on all the recent graduates and put them through the training programs. But of course, talk to people like myself, a recruiter. I'd be able to say who's got the vacancies and advise you on all the sort of things you need to prepare for your interview and your expectations and support any applications. To always talk to recruiters, because they do know what's going on, who's moving, who's retiring. There's an awful lot of retirements occurring in the paints and coatings industry in the next few years. So there are lots of companies looking at sort of recent graduates to bring them on, train them up.
Just to add, Laura, just to add to that, I think we've got on the screen there the Coatings Careers Hub website. This is a great resource for anyone looking for a role. It's got sort of current vacancies from across the sector, and in addition, it's got profiles of all the companies as well, the large and the small ones, and with sort of ways to contact them. So do have a look at coatingscareershub.com. There's some interesting videos on there as well, and it's a nice resource. But the job board and the employer section, I would certainly recommend to people to have a look at.
And just one thing I would add from like a Sherwin large company perspective is don't be afraid to take a role in a partner. So looking at taking a quality role or a tech service role, because within the company we will on a monthly basis advertise vacancies amongst the company, so it is very easy to move from one role to the other. So you might not take that first role that is the fit that you want, but it's an opportunity to get your foot in the door and move and transfer quickly into that role you desire.
Yeah, that's a really valuable point, John Rose. I think getting in the door and then moving up from there. That brings me on to the next question about, are there any internships or placement schemes within the coating sector? There's someone who got a chemical engineering background and they're just asking about that. I don't know if maybe Tom or Laura or Joe, if you know of any.
It tends to be the bigger companies that have more structured schemes. So that would be my only comment on that.
Yeah, maybe to use the Coatings Career Hub to kind of identify those employers then.
A really good resource recently discovered is on LinkedIn, you can apply for internships through LinkedIn and put down your industry that you're interested in. And so, yeah, so I found quite a few internships that way. So you don't have to identify your top 10 companies and do it individually. Yeah, if you have a look at LinkedIn, they've got a good selection of internships.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah.
And what about career changes? Would the coatings industry be a good one to consider moving into, maybe if you've come from an academic background or you've done a postdoc position? So maybe, Tom, do you know?
Oh, sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, from a small company perspective, yeah, absolutely. It's all about the candidate for us. The background is somewhat relevant, but it's all really about the candidate. And if we really like the person and we think they could fit into whatever role we're looking at, then absolutely that's the most important thing. So if we're putting a role out and you think you want to go for it, just do it. And if we can get to meet you and talk to you, that would be the important thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
I would also echo that from a large company perspective, that from another industry or even a postdoc, having that different perspective. We don't always look at chemists. We'll look at chemical engineers. We will look at biochemists. We even will look at someone who's got a biology degree, just simply to have, like, as long as they can understand the science, but to give you that different perspective. Because the challenges with a coating is that it's been around for a long time. So getting that next incremental change is difficult, and we're obviously just looking at the talent and someone who has a way of thinking and can be innovative. So yes, definitely we would encourage people from other industries and other areas to apply.
That's great. Perfect. Yeah, we're seeing more and more people looking to do something different. So definitely consider this the surface coating sector. I have a question for Jon-Paul about the advantage of working at an SME in a coatings industry compared to other larger companies. I know you touched on a little bit at the start about the variety of roles, but are there any other advantages in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one main difference, compared to what John has mentioned from Sherwin-Williams, is that you don't have that ability to switch between departments formally as easy, because you just don't have them. However, one of the advantages, I think, from being in the small company perspective is that you will have exposure to a lot of things. So everyone that works for me has exposure to the sales side of the business, the marketing side, and also customer facing experience as well. And that's including down to sort of the technicians that we have, because they'll go out to customer sites with us to help do sort of line integration. So I think one of the advantages you have is that real breadth of seeing all of the type of job roles that can happen. And I've had a few members of my technical team who have started off on the technical side, have been exposed to some of the sales and the marketing, and decided actually really that's what they want to be doing, and we've transitioned them over to that type of role within the company. And I think that's quite a nice thing to be able to have that experience of in doing your general role before having to sort of decide, oh, you know what, I might want to switch to a totally different career. Actually have something of experience of that and being exposed to it allows you to de-risk it slightly. So I think that's the main thing. It's exciting working for a small company. You don't have that safety net. So really, if you're given a job, you are the one that has to deliver it, because there's no one else that can do that. So it puts a lot of responsibility on you. But then again, it's quite pleasing to see. There's no way that if you do something well, you'll definitely be recognised for it, because there's no one else that can sort of take credit for it. You'll have a chance to shine.
That's great. Thank you, Jon-Paul. And then just coming on to the last question, which is much broader. So it may be, yeah, if you've got a pointer, then let us know. So the question is about what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in the coatings industry at this time? So I don't know who wants to take that, but it's quite a broad question looking at, yeah, some of the challenges of the sector at this time. And I know you've touched on some of the technical changes. So maybe that's one of the challenges. Maybe Joe or Tom?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, the interesting thing is the industry is always evolving. So new challenge, for example, the last year we spent a lot of time talking about antimicrobial coatings and antiviral coatings and whether the industry has a role to play there to help. And I know we've done quite a lot of work with the government on that. And with Cambridge University to try and get testing facilities, etc., available. But yeah, I think the industry is always innovating, and the thing I really like about it is we're fairly resistant to the internet age, and in fact we can use that to our benefit. And coatings will be around for a long time, and I think that's and they'll need to keep innovating as products innovate that they're used on. And also sustainability is the other critical thing going on. So how can we make coatings more sustainable? Everybody wants to achieve that. So that's feasible.
Sustainability is definitely one of the big ones, but I think that the coatings industry can also play a huge part in that by, in the same way that the antiviral coatings and things that we could do to innovate in that area, then innovations around sustainability and things that, if we can make coatings that can solve some of the sort of problems around sustainability, or at least help, then that's definitely a big challenge for the industry, but also a great area for that innovation. I think across a lot of the chemical industry as a whole, kind of threats on regulations and things like that is definitely something that is going to impact us, and that we just need to be ready to innovate and to find solutions around those challenges. And I think coming back to something that Laura had mentioned earlier around the aging workforce, I think that is going to be a big challenge for the industry as a whole, to make sure that we've got people in the businesses now that are getting the knowledge that they need for us to be able to solve these big challenges as they do come up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, sustainability is a big one. Does anyone else have anything else to add on that last very broad reaching questions? Otherwise we're coming to the end of today's webinar. So just briefly, I will touch on something. So my name's Sarah. I'm part of the career and professional development team at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and we can support our members. So if you've heard something today and you really want to get into coatings, then drop us an email and you can speak to one of us about how to identify companies, to tailor your applications based on some of what you've heard today. We also provide mentoring and other types of professional development support as well. So definitely get in contact with us. The email address is careers@rsc.org. If there's anything career related, we can generally help on it. And just to say about membership, so you can join the world's leading chemistry community that offers some of the things I've mentioned before, like career development opportunities and our in-house career management team that I'm a part of. Professional recognition, so the Chartered Chemist and the letters and associated professional awards and recognition, but also those networks which are so important now and in the future as well. So lots of different ways to connect with chemical scientists in the UK and across the world. You can find out more by emailing membership@rsc.org or going to rsc.li/members. And just to say that as an event associated with our surface coatings interest group, you can join if you're not already a member as a free affiliate member by going to the URL there, rsc.li/affiliate, and you can use the discount code IG100 to get free affiliate membership. But that brings us today to the end of today's webinar. I'd really love to thank our panelists who have shared so much interesting. I've learned so much today, and I hope you have too. So thank you to Joe, to John Rose, Jon-Paul, Laura, and Tom for your time today. It's been brilliant listening to you and hearing about you, and I think the sheer volume of questions as well, people have been very interested in learning more about it. And also you can join, if you're a member, join the surface coatings interest group as well, and get involved with more of their activities. Perfect, great.
Thank you, Sarah.
No problem. It's been, yeah, great to talk to you all today. Great, goodbye everybody, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.